Good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. And very obviously, we are back to the actual public comments on the proposed rule that was put forward by the FDA back in 2024. And we're getting back to the JRC. But first, brief disclaimer and the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are going to be right there in the description box with what I hope are some helpful labels. That way, if you would like to study the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center and the controversy surrounding it, doing a deep dive, you will be perfectly welcome to do so, as well as issues with places like Tobin World, Kennecook Camp, Agape Boarding School for Boys, and Circle of Hope. Trigger warnings. We do have this channel marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity, and some of the topics we cover, such as the before mentioned Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, Tobin World, Kennecook Camp, other places like it, you are going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. So if you have a child that is 16 and younger and they are watching this channel, parental supervision is very much advised. Alright, back to the public comments. And this one too, thus far, appears to be against the JRC. Crazy how public interpretation of what they do as compared to JRC is very different, isn't it? When something is so simple, when the evidence is so overwhelming. Anyway, let's get to the comment. I work with a group of self-advocates at a disability justice organization, and I want the FDA to pass a rule banning the use of electric shock devices for behavioral modification. Now, a lot of us say this. There's some of us that are kind of hesitant because they will immediately slam us with, well, you're biased. Yes, I am biased. I am biased believing that treatment programs should not be intentionally designed to hurt the consumers that those programs are supposed to be helping. If that is the new definition of being biased, then consider me guilty. But it does make some people hesitant. But not me, because there's a lot more inherent bias in regards to the center in question conducting its own clinical study on a device designed by their own founder, whose organization signs their paychecks, than there is in me siding on the side of reason. And I have no problems calling it out either. A lot of us who are in the disability rights movement all pretty much unilaterally feel the same way. But we have been asked, do you think that maybe you could be wrong? No, I don't. This is actually quite simple. This is not a complicated matter. People try to complicate it because they're trying to justify the unjustifiable. So they'll use excuses like, it's complicated. Or they'll use excuses like, but if these behaviors don't stop. Okay, but that does not justify in its turn how people who are supposed to be caretakers treat the individuals they are supposed to be taking care of and looking after. Point blank. Okay? There's no excuses. None. The fact that this even has to be said is very revealing. Let me continue. The use of electric shock devices, particularly at the Judge Rotenberg Center in Canton, Massachusetts, is an unethical, unsafe, and counteractive form of punishment, not a treatment. And folks, no, it does not suddenly become treatment just because the JRC says it is, and their founder had letters behind his name. Okay? Can't believe I have to continue to say that, but here we are. If you would not approve it for the medical treatment of a neurotypical, you should not approve it for the medical treatment of somebody who's neurodivergent, somebody who has a mental health issue, or is otherwise disabled. It's that simple. You wouldn't say it was complicated if this was neurotypicals being treated in such a manner. It should be the same for us. There should not be this double standard. Matthew Israel, JRC's founder, leading doctor, and developer of the shock treatment equipment, says the electric shock treatment is humane. However, the United Nations calls it torture. Electric shock treatment is said to be used on individuals with developmental disabilities and emotional and behavioral disorders at JRC to intervene with dangerous and life-threatening behaviors. An example of such behaviors is detaching their retinas from banging their heads against a wall. However, the JRC has electrocuted people for merely flapping their hands, standing up without asking permission, swearing, refusing to remove their coats, making noises or movements prompted by their disability, and for screaming in pain immediately following previous electric shocks. One former JRC resident recalls being shocked because he did not wake up, which caused him to wet the bed, for which he was shocked again. Thank you. And they also considering tensing your muscles as an act of aggression, without considering the fact that when you have an electrode attached to a specific muscle of the body, and you use that electrode to target a whole bunch of electricity just below the lethal limit, concentrated into that one muscle, that muscle's natural reaction is going to be to tense up. That is not a voluntary muscle tensing. Therefore, you cannot claim it as a muscle tensing that happens right before aggressive behavior. It is the natural result of what happens when you use a human shock collar on a targeted specific muscle. Their excuses are nonsensical and takes entirely out of the equation the body's natural reactions to stimuli, such as electricity being pumped through them. Okay? There are natural bodily reactions that we have interacting with the different things in our environment every single day that are automatic to the body and over which is entirely unconscious on our part, in which case we are not willfully controlling. And the JRC ignores that concept entirely. But anyways, let me go ahead and continue. Many people with autism experience hypersensitivity to physical touch and use sensory avoidance to regulate stimuli. I am one of those individuals. Granted, it tends to be a bit on the milder side than some of the folks that share my diagnosis with me, but I am hyper alert all the time. Hyper vigilant, hyper alert, 24/7, from the moment I open my eyes until the moment I close them at night. And even in my sleep, I can be hyper vigilant. And it takes like the very smallest of things to jolt my ass awake. I have hypersensitive hearing. Hypersensitive to different lights and things that can shine through windows. A lot of us do. But yeah, let me go ahead and continue. But we'll do things like I have my weird leg shaking thing, or when I have my ponytail holder on my wrist, I will use that to twist it around. Or on occasion, although not as often as the leg shaking or the ponytail holder wrists twisting thing, I will do this with the chair. And on very rare occasions, usually as one of the very last things I do right before I go to meltdown, you'll see the more traditional type of repetitive movement to stimming that you all are more used to from Hollywood, which will be, yeah, that one I don't do quite as often. Usually it's the leg shaking or the ponytail twisting on the wrists. But let me continue here. People with autism also engage in stimming, which is the act of repetitive movements, like the leg shaking thing, sounds, or fidgeting to balance their sensory symptoms. Stimming is one of the reasons individuals get shocked at the JRC. It's also a part of ABA as well. We want to get you to stop stimming. Why? Because neurotypicals don't do it. That's literally it. They don't like it because it looks weird. Whether or not those type of movements serve a purpose and actually help us are completely irrelevant in the medical model's eyes, because when we engage in those behaviors, it looks weird to the outside world. It makes the normies uncomfortable, and therefore we have to drill it out of you. I got very lucky that I got to skip ABA. Let's just put it that way. Because I'm going to do the leg shaking. I'm going to twist my ponytail holders when the occasion calls for it. I'm going to do these things whether they like it or not, because they are natural to me and help me better navigate my environment, in particular an environment that is definitely not built for people like me, and also helps me from, going off the deep end. Okay? Let me go ahead and continue here. Electric shocks can trigger sensory overload, which causes anxiety and halts decision making and processing of information. Oh yeah, sensory load is absolute, unadulterated, painful hell. Absolute. Not just like psychological, I'm annoyed pain, like physical, actual, I'm feeling real pain, which is something a lot of neurotypicals do not understand. They do not understand that when we say we can feel color, they don't comprehend that. Okay, that's not something they experience. Like, you mean you feel it on a psychological level? No, I mean that color of yellow is making me feel like I'm slowly being roasted alive. That particular weird color of green is causing anxiety and making the acid in my stomach churn to the point I feel like somebody just stuck a torch down my throat, stuffed it all the way down directly into my gut, and set my insides on fire. Because that's not necessarily something that they completely can wrap their brains around, you know? Additionally, electric shock can worsen underlying symptoms. Yes. Depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, pain, burns, tissue damage. People have been treated for first-degree burns due to electric shock treatment, as well as second and third if we include the entire medical report of Andre McCollins. And considering this is my channel, we live on the details, we live on facts. Yes, we covered that. Damn right I did. Experiencing and witnessing the electric shock devices in use is extremely traumatic. The viral video of former adult JRC resident Andre McCollins being shocked 31 times in 7 hours is horrifyingly mortifying. His cries and begs for help have lived in my head since 2012. I can never not hear those screams. They live inside my head every day. From the moment I wake up, from the moment I go to bed, I am constantly thinking about Andre, about all of those kids. That is who it is for. This is what this channel is for. This is what I spend my life doing, that I know in my heart is right. Those cries, I will never not hear them. Okay? And I was not, by far, the only one that was affected that way when that video went viral. I was already fighting by 2008 to make sure that that video was able to get seen. That was during the trial when Cheryl McCollins, Andre's mother, sued the school. His cries for help were terrifying. There is nothing humane about what happens in that video. The incident left McCollins catatonic and apologizing, sobbing, pleading for help to his mother over the phone for the remainder of the weekend. Research indicates the effectiveness of electric shock treatment is weak and that alternative treatments would be beneficial for the disability community. Please ban the use of electric shock devices. And that's just it, folks. Plain and simple. This is what we have all been saying from our various areas for years, decades. They put it brilliantly. And yeah, that was an attachment from them. That's just their comment. But clearly that says it up about all of it, doesn't it? We're going to go ahead and close on that one, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do get tend to get removed from time to time. So if you would be so kind, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe, don't forget to hit the comments, and don't forget to double check that you have your notifications turned on. Hit that bell. We do have a bunch of different series coming out, and not long after this we are going to be doing a video today on our Snap series as well. Alright folks, we do appreciate your time, and as always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I'll see you all in a little bit. Bye-bye, everyone.